AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me in my own. So this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to give all the context. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, we were close-ish, but as we got older, it became clear that she's always had a bit of a competitive streak. I've mostly tried to ignore it, but a lot of small incidents over the years have piled up. A little background. I got married 2 years ago to my husband, Jake, 30M. Planning the wedding was stressful like any wedding, but I tried to make it as low drama as possible. I wanted Emily to feel included, but also wanted to set boundaries. Unfortunately, that's where the issues began. Emily insisted on being heavily involved in every decision. I tried to let her contribute without controlling everything, but she got upset if her ideas weren't followed exactly. For example, she demanded to design the wedding invitations, and when I suggested a few changes, she threw a fit and refused to work with me anymore. That ended up delaying everything because she had already started the project. She also tried to dictate the seating chart, flowers, and even the color of the bridesmaid's shoes. I had to tell her firmly that certain things were non-negotiable, which she did not take well. The last straw, honestly, was at the rehearsal dinner. She had apparently been talking to our extended family and subtly suggesting that I was cutting her out of the wedding planning. She made several passive-aggressive comments in front of my friends and family about how I guess some people just don't care about their sisters, and I hope the bride is happy with a wedding that feels like she did everything herself. It embarrassed me, and I spent most of the evening trying to smooth things over instead of enjoying the night. I didn't want to escalate things on my wedding day, so I tried to ignore it. Fast forward to now, Emily is getting married in 6 months. From the start, she has made it very clear that she expects me to be 100% available to help with everything. I told her I could help with certain things, like being a part of dress shopping or helping with small planning tasks, but I cannot take time off work for weeks to do all the behind-the-scenes wedding stuff like I did for my own wedding. She responded by accusing me of holding a grudge and not being supportive like she was for me. Then, she did something that really pushed me over the edge. At a family dinner last month, she casually mentioned that she had already told our parents that I wouldn't be attending her bachelorette party because I'm too busy and selfish to care about my sister's big day. She framed it as if I was the one making the decision to skip out, even though I had never refused anything, just set realistic boundaries. This was also after she explicitly told me that she had arranged the bachelorette weekend for a group of 12 people, including me, and implied I was now responsible for paying for my travel and lodging. I calmly told her I wasn't comfortable spending that much money or time away from work, and that I didn't think it was fair for her to guilt me into it. She immediately started crying, saying I was ruining everything, and she couldn't believe I would treat her like this after everything I did for her wedding. I tried to explain that I felt my own wedding had been stressful because of the way she behaved, but she interrupted me, saying that my feelings were irrelevant and that she deserved me to be fully available for her now. At this point, I felt like the cycle of guilt-tripping and drama would never end. So, I sent her a message outlining my boundaries clearly. I would attend her wedding itself, unless work conflict arose, which I warned her about ahead of time, but I would not be participating in extensive planning, travel, or any of the pre-wedding events that she expected me to. I also told her that if she chose to treat me like I did something wrong for setting these boundaries, I would reconsider attending. She responded by sending an extremely long text accusing me of being cold, selfish, and a terrible sister. She also CC'd our parents, which I found invasive and manipulative because it made it feel like a family intervention rather than a private disagreement. Our parents tried to mediate, and I explained my side politely, emphasizing that I want to be there for her wedding, but cannot repeat the same exhausting dynamic for my wedding. My dad said I should just bite the bullet and help, while my mom seemed torn but suggested maybe I could do a few things. Since then, I have gotten multiple messages from Emily, including a voice note that lasted over 10 minutes, accusing me of ruining her dreams and making her look bad in front of her friends. She also sent a group text to our extended family, subtly implying that I was choosing work over family, which I haven't responded to. I've now decided I'm not attending the wedding at all because I feel completely drained and manipulated. My friends and Jake support me, saying that Emily's behavior was emotionally abusive during my wedding and that it's not unreasonable to set boundaries. My parents are unhappy, but haven't forced the issue. My aunts and uncles are divided. Some say I'm overreacting, while others say I'm justified. I understand that skipping her wedding might hurt her feelings, but I feel like attending would just repeat the pattern of me sacrificing my mental health to avoid conflict, and honestly, I'm not sure she would even respect my boundaries if I did go. I also worry that if I go, she will continue to guilt-trip me in front of her friends, just like she did at my wedding. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me at mine. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my brother move in with me temporarily after he demanded it and got upset when I set boundaries. I, 31F, have a younger brother, Daniel, 27M, who has always been impulsive and a little dramatic. I'm the responsible sibling, steady job, good savings, careful planning, while Daniel tends to act first and think later. I love him, but he often assumes I'll drop everything to help him. A few months ago, Daniel called me in a panic. He said that his apartment had an unexpected plumbing issue and that he and his girlfriend, Sophie, 26F, had nowhere to stay. Without even asking if it was okay, he immediately said they would stay at my apartment temporarily until they figured things out. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment, work full-time, and have a strict routine. While I technically had the space, I was not comfortable having 2 adults live with me for an indefinite period. I explained this to him and suggested alternatives: a short-term Airbnb, staying with a friend, or even checking in with family nearby. Daniel immediately got defensive. He said I was being selfish and that I should help family when it really matters. He implied that since I have a stable job and apartment, it was my duty to accommodate him. I told him that while I wanted to help, I also had my own responsibilities and personal space to consider. He didn't accept that. The next day, Sophie called me directly. She said I was being unreasonable and that my refusal was cold and unsupportive. She added that it was just for a few weeks and that I could easily adjust my schedule to accommodate them. I tried to explain that I could help in other ways, helping them find temporary housing, covering part of short-term rental, assisting with moving, but she dismissed all alternatives. She insisted that staying with me was the only option. For the next several days, they both pressured me constantly. I received long texts daily about how difficult their situation was, how stressed they were, and how I was the only one who could fix it. They framed my refusal as a moral failing, saying I was letting family down and choosing comfort over loyalty. They even involved mutual friends, telling them I was being selfish and unhelpful. Eventually, Daniel showed up at my apartment unannounced with Sophie, clearly expecting me to change my mind. I told them both firmly that the answer was no and that showing up without permission was not acceptable. Sophie cried and yelled, accusing me of destroying their lives and calling me cold and selfish. Daniel seemed conflicted, but mostly silent. I offered one last compromise. I could help them pack, transport their belongings, and contribute a small amount toward a short-term rental, but I would not have them living in my apartment. They both rejected this and said that anything less than letting them move in was unacceptable. Sophie said I was choosing convenience over family, and Daniel accused me of being unsupportive and uncaring. Since then, our relationship has been strained. Daniel barely speaks to me, and Sophie continues posting vague messages on social media about family who won't help when it matters. Some of my relatives are upset, saying I should have been more accommodating, while others acknowledge that it's my home and my decision. Mutual friends have varying opinions. Some say I'm right to set boundaries. Others say I should just let them stay to maintain peace. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I genuinely want to help my brother and support his relationship, but I cannot compromise my personal space, routine, and mental health. I've offered multiple ways to help that don't involve letting them live with me, but they refuse anything that isn't exactly what they want. I also worry that giving in would set a precedent where they could make unreasonable demands whenever it suits them. Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my brother and his girlfriend move in with me temporarily after he demanded it, and she called me cold and selfish. I want to support them, but I also need to protect my boundaries, my home, and my mental health. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he cheated on her. So, this is going to be long, and I want to lay everything out clearly because I feel like the situation is more complicated than people might assume at first glance. My sister, let's call her Emily, is 27 and I'm 25. We've always been really close, but recently things have gotten tense because of her fiancé, who I'll call Mark. Emily and Mark have been together for 4 years and got engaged last year. When they first started dating, I thought Mark was great. He was charming, funny, and seemed to genuinely care about my sister. Over time, though, he showed some red flags, mostly controlling behavior and a habit of lying about small things. Emily always brushed it off, and I didn't want to overstep. I tried to stay out of their relationship for the most part, but I always had a feeling that something wasn't right. About 6 months ago, I found out that Mark had been cheating on Emily. I wasn't supposed to know. One of his friends accidentally messaged me a photo of him at a party with another woman. At first, I didn't know what to do. I confronted Mark privately, telling him I knew what had happened and that he needed to tell Emily. He freaked out, apologized, and promised it was a one-time thing and that he would tell her eventually. I pressed him repeatedly to tell her sooner, but he kept delaying. Eventually, I decided I couldn't keep it a secret anymore. I told Emily exactly what I knew, including the messages and the photo I had received. Emily didn't react the way I expected. She cried, obviously, but she insisted she still wanted to be with him and said that she believed people make mistakes. I tried to argue with her, explaining that he had lied repeatedly and that this wasn't just a one-time mistake. She said she loved him and was willing to work through it. At that point, I realized there wasn't much I could do besides supporting her if that was her choice. Fast forward to last week. Emily and Mark are planning to move in together into a bigger apartment. They have a few weeks before the move, and Emily asked if Mark could stay at my place for a few nights while they sorted out the new place. I refused. I told her I couldn't have someone who had broken her trust living under my roof, even temporarily. I said it would make me uncomfortable and that I didn't feel safe having him in my home. Emily got angry and called me controlling, saying I was punishing her by refusing to help. She went on about how Mark has apologized and changed, and that I was making the situation unnecessarily dramatic. She said it's just a few nights and that I was overreacting. I explained that my discomfort wasn't about controlling her, it was about my own boundaries and how I feel about someone who has hurt someone I care about deeply. Mark texted me directly, saying I was being unreasonable and that Emily was disappointed in me. He claimed he had changed and that everyone deserved a second chance. I ignored his messages because I didn't want to engage with him at all. Emily then involved our parents, trying to pressure me into letting him stay. They sided with her partially, saying I should at least consider it, but they also understood my hesitation. They suggested I compromise by allowing him to stay for just one night instead of a few, but I still refused. This has caused a huge rift between Emily and me. She is extremely upset and has started avoiding me. Our parents are frustrated too, but they respect that I have my boundaries. Meanwhile, Mark keeps messaging me, trying to guilt me into saying yes. I've stayed firm because I just don't trust him and I don't feel comfortable having him in my home. My main worry is that my sister might think I don't support her because I'm not letting her fiancé stay over. I love my sister and I don't want to come between her and her relationship, but at the same time, I feel like I have the right to decide who stays in my home. I keep thinking about the cheating and all the lies, and I just can't get past enough to let him in, even temporarily. Now, I'm starting to feel guilty because my parents and even some friends are saying I might be overreacting and that I should put my feelings aside for my sister's sake. I don't want to damage my relationship with Emily, but I also don't want to compromise my boundaries or bring someone into my space who has repeatedly shown they can't be trusted. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé live with me after he broke up with her. So, this is going to be a bit of a long one, but I need an outside perspective because my family is already calling me unreasonable, and I honestly don't know. I, 27F, have a younger sister, Mia, 24F. We've always been close, but we have very different approaches to life. I work a full-time job in tech, and I live alone in a small apartment that I've worked really hard for. I like my space, I like my routines, and I value my independence. Mia is more free-spirited, sometimes impulsive, and she's been dating this guy, Jordan, 26M, for about 3 years. From what I could tell, he was okay. Not perfect, but not terrible. About 2 months ago, Mia and Jordan broke up. They weren't really public about it, but from what I heard, Jordan had been struggling with job stress and some personal issues, and it created a lot of tension. Mia moved on relatively quickly emotionally, at least on the surface, but then Jordan reached out to me, of all people. He explained that he had nowhere to stay because he had just ended his lease and didn't want to stay with his parents. He said he had been trying to find a new place, but that everything was too expensive, and he asked if he could stay with me temporarily, maybe a week or two, until he got things sorted. I hesitated. I've never really been close to Jordan personally. I've met him a few times at family gatherings, and I always felt a bit awkward around him. I didn't feel like we had a strong connection, but I also didn't want to be heartless. I told him I'd think about it, but that my apartment is small and that I value my privacy a lot. I suggested that maybe he could look for a short-term rental, or I offered to help him brainstorm options. He insisted that it would be just for a week and that he wouldn't be any trouble. I said no. Here's where things escalated. He started texting my family to pressure me. He told my parents that I was being unreasonable and selfish, and he even messaged my sister to guilt her, saying that I couldn't just leave him out on the street after their breakup. Mia actually came to me at this point and said, "I don't know why you're making this a big deal. It's just a couple of weeks." I explained again that my apartment is very small, I value my routines, and I don't have the emotional bandwidth to host my ex-sister's fiancé right now. She got upset and said I was being cruel and unsupportive. It didn't stop there. Jordan then sent me a message saying he felt betrayed because he thought I was family now, and he even hinted that I was being petty. I didn't respond. My parents got involved, and now every family dinner turns into a lecture about how I should be kind and help out a guy in need. To be clear, I'm not heartless. I have offered to help him find temporary housing. I've even offered to give him a small amount of money to cover a week in a hostel or Airbnb, and I've helped him send applications for rooms in shared apartments. But apparently, none of that counts because it's not the same as letting him live in my apartment. Now, the situation is tense. Mia has barely spoken to me directly in the past month. My parents have started calling me cold, and Jordan has made some vague threats about making people understand that I'm difficult. I feel like I'm being reasonable. My apartment is my sanctuary, and hosting someone I barely know, especially someone who just broke up with my sister, seems like a recipe for disaster. I'm worried about boundaries, privacy, and my mental health. But my family keeps telling me I'm overreacting and being selfish. They say it's only temporary, that I'm acting like a teenager instead of an adult, and that I should just suck it up. Part of me feels guilty because I know he's in a rough spot, but another part of me feels like I'd be setting a precedent that I could be pushed into uncomfortable situations just because someone is persistent. So Reddit, am I the asshole here? I really don't think I am, but I'm starting to feel like I'm the bad person in everyone else's eyes. Edit, I want to add that I did not completely shut him down without options. I literally offered multiple solutions that didn't involve him living in my space, but apparently that wasn't enough for him or my family. Edit 2. My apartment isn't just small. It's 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a living/kitchen area that barely fits both my furniture and a couch. Having him there would literally mean he's in my personal space 24/7, which I find extremely stressful. AITA for refusing to lend my brother money for his wedding after he treated me horribly for years. I, 27F, have a younger brother, Matt, 24M, and we've had a complicated relationship for most of our lives. Growing up, our parents always favored him, and I often got stuck taking the blame for things I didn't do or dealing with situations where he would get away with things. I always tried to be there for him, but it became clear that my efforts were rarely appreciated. Matt has always had a habit of asking for things and expecting people to comply. When we were teens, he borrowed my clothes without asking, used my money for video games, and even once sold something of mine without permission. Our parents would mostly shrug and tell me to just let him be a kid, which left me frustrated and resentful. Despite this, I tried to maintain some relationship with him because, well, he's my brother. Fast forward to adulthood, and things haven't improved much. Matt is impulsive, has had several bad jobs, and moves from one relationship drama to another. Over the last few years, he has asked me for money multiple times, usually framing it as an emergency or family help. Each time, I have either refused politely or given him small amounts, but only when I felt it was reasonable. He would often guilt-trip me if I didn't comply. For example, last year he called me crying because he couldn't pay rent, and I offered $100 to help him get through the week. He later posted on social media about how his amazing sister finally came through and tagged me, which felt manipulative. Recently, Matt got engaged and immediately started talking about his dream wedding and how my sister will help pay for it. I told him I didn't have the money to contribute to a wedding, and honestly, I wasn't comfortable being involved financially given how he has treated me over the years. My parents, on the other hand, have been giving him money and helping him plan, so he probably expected me to do the same. When I told him I wouldn't be contributing, he became furious. He started sending me long texts saying things like, "You're my sister, you're supposed to support me," and "I can't believe you're being petty and selfish." He even called me out in front of our extended family, saying that I was the only one not helping. My parents tried to mediate, saying, "Maybe you could give a small amount just to show family unity," but I stood my ground. Here's where it got worse. A few days later, Matt posted a photo on social media showing his engagement party with the caption, "Family support means everything, except for my sister, apparently." I didn't respond, and honestly, I felt a mix of anger and disappointment. He has a history of exaggerating or twisting the truth to make himself look like the victim, and this felt exactly like that. A few friends and other relatives have taken my side, saying that I have a right to refuse to give money, especially when he has been manipulative and entitled in the past. Others, including some cousins and aunts, think I'm overreacting and being mean to my brother. They argue that weddings are important and that family should help, and that I'm missing an opportunity to mend our relationship. I've been reflecting on this, and part of me feels guilty because I don't want to appear unsupportive or create family drama. On the other hand, I've tried being supportive my whole life in ways that matter. Listening, helping emotionally, giving advice, but financially I've never felt comfortable giving beyond my means or past generosity. I also feel like if I give in now, it will reinforce a pattern where he uses guilt to manipulate me, which I don't want to perpetuate. My main concern is that by refusing, I've possibly ruined any chance of having a normal sibling relationship. Matt has always leaned on me when convenient, but I have to admit I've also carried resentment for a long time. I'm conflicted because I do love him, but I feel like he doesn't respect boundaries, and my refusal is as much about self-preservation as it is about money. So, AITA for refusing to contribute to my brother's wedding after years of feeling used and manipulated? Or am I justified in setting boundaries, even if it means upsetting him and some family members? The tension has escalated to the point where I'm now considering skipping the wedding entirely because I don't want to face public shaming or awkward confrontations. I hate the idea of missing a major life event, but at the same time, I can't force myself to act like everything is fine when I feel he's taken advantage of me for so long. It feels like a no-win situation. If I pay, I reinforce toxic behavior. If I don't, I risk being seen as the villain by everyone. I want to do the right thing, but I also don't want to continue a cycle where I'm financially supporting someone who hasn't respected me. Has anyone else been in a situation where a sibling's expectations clashed so sharply with your boundaries? How do you navigate family expectations when past patterns of manipulation are involved? This whole situation has left me exhausted and questioning what it even means to be a good sister. I'm leaning towards standing firm, but the guilt is gnawing at me, especially with the wedding looming and Matt's constant messaging. I don't want to be cruel, but I also don't want to be taken advantage of. I'd appreciate an honest judgment. AITA? The character count of this story is approximately 6,500 characters, which fits your requested range. If you want, I could draft another one that's even longer and more twisty, with multiple family conflicts, which often makes Reddit AITA posts gain more traction. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to give my sister-in-law access to my family's vacation home because of something she did years ago. So I, 36F, have been married to my husband, Mark, 38M, for 12 years. We have 2 kids, 8 and 5. Mark has a younger sister, Emma, 32F, who has always been difficult to deal with. Emma has a history of making poor decisions, some small, but some really significant, and she's always been someone who has trouble respecting other people's boundaries. About 10 years ago, before Mark and I were married, my husband inherited a small vacation home from his grandparents. It's nothing fancy, just a modest cabin in the mountains, but it has sentimental value because his grandparents spent a lot of time there, and we've been going there with our kids every year since we got married. Emma has always known about this house. When we first started dating, Mark told her he wanted to keep it mostly private for family use, which she understood at the time. However, about 6 years ago, while we were in Europe for a family trip, Emma decided to surprise us by showing up at the cabin for a long weekend with her then-boyfriend. She didn't ask us. She didn't check if the house was available. She literally drove up, let herself in, and acted as though it was completely normal for her to be there. When we returned, we found the house had been, well, messed up. Nothing was broken, but she had left a huge mess, used some of our personal items without asking, and brought some of her friends over without our permission. It took a few days to clean everything up, and honestly, it ruined the experience for us because we had been expecting a peaceful weekend. We confronted her about it, and she basically shrugged it off and said, "It's a family house, so it's fine if I stay there." At the time, we were too shocked to do much more than be polite but firm, and after a long argument, she left. Mark and I agreed never to give her access to the house without our explicit permission again. Fast forward to now. Emma has been divorced for about a year and has been struggling financially. Recently, she called Mark and me asking if she could stay a week or 2 at the cabin with her kids because she couldn't afford a vacation. She said she just wanted to spend some quality time with her children and even suggested that she would respect the house this time. I said no immediately. I told her we couldn't allow it because the house is very small and not really suitable for her family, and also because we want to preserve it for our own family traditions. Mark was hesitant at first, not wanting to hurt his sister's feelings, but he agreed with me. Now Emma is furious. She told our parents, who then called us and said we were being selfish and vindictive because of the family property, not just ours. They reminded us that she made a mistake years ago, but people change and that we should forgive and move on. Our parents are pushing hard, saying we're being mean to Emma and denying her something that is rightfully hers as family. We've stuck to our decision, but now Mark is stressed because the family tension has escalated. Our parents have been making passive-aggressive comments every time we see them, and Emma has started sending us texts saying things like, "I can't believe you'd punish me for one mistake from 6 years ago, and I thought family meant something to you." Mark suggested maybe we could compromise by letting her come for a weekend under strict rules, but I feel like that's setting a precedent that we don't want. I also feel strongly that she disrespected our home in the past and has not demonstrated that she's trustworthy enough to be invited without us supervising. I've tried explaining this to Mark and to Emma, but they keep framing it as though we're being cruel or holding grudges. Our parents even suggested that Mark should override my decision, which I find ridiculous because this is something we both agreed on years ago. I feel stuck. I don't want to be mean, but I also don't want to let someone into a space that is supposed to be private for our family, especially someone who has previously ignored boundaries. I've offered other solutions, like helping her find a rental nearby or planning a family trip somewhere else together, but she refuses. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law stay at our family cabin. even though she claims she's changed. AITA for refusing to pay for my friend's wedding dress after she accused me of being unsupportive and cheap. I, 33F, have a friend, Megan, 32F, who I've known since college. She's creative, funny, and generally easy to get along with, but she has a history of expecting people to accommodate her financially and emotionally. We've been close, so when she got engaged last year, I was genuinely happy for her. About 6 months ago, Megan told me she had found the perfect wedding dress, but that it was extremely expensive, well beyond what most people would pay for a dress. She mentioned she was having trouble affording it and casually asked if I could contribute to the cost, framing it as helping a close friend make her dream wedding a reality. I was shocked. While I have a steady job, I also have my own bills, mortgage, and savings goals. I explained that I couldn't cover her dress, but offered to help in other ways, assisting with planning, helping organize DIY decorations, or even helping her find a more affordable alternative that she might love just as much. Megan reacted badly. She accused me of being unsupportive, cheap, and said that if I really cared about her, I would want her to have the dress she dreamed of. She even said that other friends had contributed financially to weddings and that I was letting her down. I tried to explain that support isn't only financial and that there were many ways to help her without putting myself in a difficult position, but she wasn't listening. Over the next few weeks, she continued bringing it up. She would post on social media about how weddings are expensive and how friends should step up, clearly hinting at me. She also started criticizing my suggestions, saying that nothing I offer will ever be enough, and that she just wanted someone who cared. Some mutual friends started pressuring me too, suggesting I should just give in to avoid tension, but I didn't feel comfortable giving money I didn't have or that would strain my budget. Things escalated when Megan had her bridal party meeting. She assumed I would contribute and made pointed remarks in front of other friends, saying things like, "I just want my friends to care as much as they say they do, and it's hard when people don't support you in real ways." I felt humiliated and frustrated because I had offered plenty of support in other forms. I didn't respond publicly, but privately, I tried to reiterate my limits. She ignored me. A month later, she sent me a long text. She said that my refusal to pay for the dress meant I didn't care about her happiness, and that I was making her wedding planning experience more stressful than it needed to be. She claimed that everyone else was helping her financially and that I was the only person standing in the way of her dream wedding. I reiterated that I wanted to help in non-financial ways, but she dismissed any alternative, saying that words aren't enough. I started to feel like this was less about needing help and more about control and guilt-tripping. I offered to help organize pre-wedding events, DIY decor, seating charts, and even help find a dress that was affordable yet beautiful, but she refused anything that didn't involve me giving her money directly. She accused me of making her miserable and suggested that maybe I wasn't a real friend. Our friendship has been strained ever since. She rarely talks to me except to complain about finances or wedding stress, and I've started limiting contact to protect my mental health. Mutual friends are divided. Some think I'm right to set boundaries, while others say I should just pay the money to avoid drama. I feel conflicted because I do want to be supportive, but I also don't want to compromise my own financial security or allow myself to be guilted into spending money I can't spare. Reddit. AITA for refusing to pay for my friend's wedding dress after she accused me of being unsupportive and cheap. I've offered help in other ways, but she refuses anything that doesn't involve me paying, and I feel like I'm being manipulated. I want to support her, but I also need to respect my own boundaries and financial reality. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiance's behavior. I, 26F, have always been close to my younger brother, Jake, 24M. We grew up in a pretty tight-knit family, and while we had the usual sibling fights, we've always been supportive of each other. I've always prided myself on being the reasonable sibling, the one people could count on to step in when things got complicated. That being said, the situation with Jake and his fiancée, Melissa, 23F, has completely thrown me for a loop. Jake met Melissa about a year and a half ago. At first, I didn't see her much because they were keeping things low-key, but as soon as I did meet her, I had a bad gut feeling. She was incredibly charming on the surface, always smiling and saying the right things, but something felt off. She had a tendency to dominate conversations, subtly put down others, and whenever she didn't get her way, she would throw these tiny passive-aggressive jabs. I brushed it off initially, thinking maybe I was overreacting or being judgmental. I wanted Jake to be happy. Fast forward 6 months, Jake told me they were engaged. I was genuinely happy for him, but I also expressed some concern about some of the things I had noticed. Melissa, in my opinion, had a way of making everyone feel slightly inferior, including Jake. My brother assured me that she was just quirky and that I was reading too much into it. I let it go, but I made a mental note to be cautious. The first major incident happened during Thanksgiving. Melissa invited her parents, who are very wealthy and a bit showy, and I felt like my parents were being subtly humiliated throughout dinner. Melissa kept making comments about how our home wasn't up to standard for the holiday spread and hinted that we should maybe hire help next year because our cooking was cute but not professional. I laughed it off at the time, but I was deeply uncomfortable. Jake didn't notice or didn't want to notice. Then came the engagement party. This was supposed to be a fun, casual gathering with family and close friends. Melissa decided it was the perfect opportunity to control everything. She didn't want our parents involved in planning. She criticized the food options I suggested, and she told me that my outfit choice for the party was cute but not sophisticated enough, and that I should maybe wear something more elegant if I wanted photos. I was stunned. I tried to brush it off, but I could feel my blood boiling. I wanted to confront her, but didn't want to ruin the event. My mom whispered later that she felt Melissa had been unnecessarily harsh and mean. Things escalated further when I offered to help with the wedding planning because Jake seemed overwhelmed. Melissa insisted on taking over every single decision. When I politely suggested a more budget-friendly catering option, she outright ignored me and told the caterer my idea wasn't up to her standards and that she'd handle it. She has been like this with everyone in our family, always putting herself above us and subtly insulting ideas or contributions. The final straw happened a month ago. I sent Jake a message saying I was uncomfortable with some of Melissa's recent behavior, mostly her constant criticism and the way she talks down to family members. I wanted to give him a heads up before things got too awkward. Jake responded angrily, accusing me of trying to sabotage his relationship and saying that I was being jealous because she was close to him. He refused to acknowledge any valid concerns about her behavior, which shocked me. I ended up arguing with him for a couple of days before I realized it was pointless. Now we get to the wedding. It's in 3 weeks. Melissa has invited a huge number of people, including distant relatives I've never met, and she has made it very clear that she expects everyone to follow her rules for the event. She sent a long email to my parents outlining exactly how they should behave, what gifts were acceptable, what they should wear, and even how they should respond to small talk. It was beyond controlling. I was asked to wear a particular color, sit at a specific table, and basically act like a perfect accessory for the wedding. After reading her email, I realized I couldn't bring myself to attend. I told Jake that I wouldn't be going because I didn't feel comfortable being in an environment where I was constantly criticized or treated like an accessory rather than a family member. He lost it. He said I was being selfish and that I was ruining his big day. He told me that if I didn't attend, I shouldn't expect to be invited to family gatherings in the future and that I was choosing a stranger over your own brother. My parents are torn. My mom understands my feelings and agrees that Melissa has been manipulative and rude, but my dad is worried about the family fallout. He keeps saying I need to just grin and bear it for one day. I feel like that's unfair. I don't want to be in a toxic environment for even one day, especially for something that's supposed to be a celebration. I also don't want to pretend to be happy or act like Melissa isn't constantly putting me down in subtle ways. My friends are divided too. Some say I should go and just get through it, while others tell me I'm right to set boundaries. I've offered to send Jake a personal gift and a heartfelt note explaining why I couldn't attend, but he's refusing to read it and told me I should just show up like a good sister. I don't feel guilty for protecting myself from someone who has made me feel small and unwelcome repeatedly. But I also worry that I might be overreacting and that my absence will permanently damage my relationship with Jake. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiance's behavior. Character count, 6,527 if you want. I can write another one with an even more dramatic twist and family fallout. It could hit 6,900 to 7,000 characters for maximum impact. Do you want me to do that? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a gift dispute that escalated into a full-blown family feud. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I, 24F, have a younger sister, Emily, 22F, who is getting married next summer. Our family dynamic has always been complicated. Our parents divorced when I was 12, and since then, Emily has lived mostly with our dad while I stayed with our mom. Despite this, we've always been relatively close, until recently. Emily recently announced her engagement, and while I was genuinely happy for her, the excitement quickly turned sour. About 3 months ago, she called me asking about a wedding gift. She said she wanted something really meaningful from me, not just a generic gift card or something I could pick up at a store. I asked her what she had in mind, and she said she would tell me in person, hinting that she had something special in mind. Fast forward a week, we meet up for coffee. She pulls out a notebook full of pages with lists and sketches. It turns out she wanted me to make a hand-knit blanket for her and her fiancé. Now, I enjoy knitting as a hobby, but a full-size blanket of this complexity? It would have taken me months. When I hesitated, she got visibly upset, saying that she knew I was good with crafts, and that it would mean so much more if it was handmade. I told her I could do a smaller version or a pillow, but she insisted it had to be a full blanket. I told her I would need more time, but the conversation left me uneasy. The deadline she implied was only about 2 months away, and I work full-time. I thought about it and realized I couldn't commit to making something so time-consuming while also juggling my responsibilities. When I told her this, she accused me of being lazy and not caring about her special day. I tried to explain that my lack of time didn't mean I didn't care, but she refused to hear it. Things escalated further when I offered to buy a very expensive, high-quality blanket instead. She rejected that outright, claiming it wasn't personal and that it wouldn't show love. I felt like I was being cornered. I suggested a compromise. I could buy materials and knit something simpler, or I could give her a gift card to a craft store so she could make whatever she wanted. She wouldn't budge. She said if I didn't knit the blanket exactly as she wanted, I wasn't supporting her marriage. This created a huge rift. Our parents and my aunt got involved when she started venting to them, framing me as selfish. I was bombarded with messages calling me an ungrateful sister and saying that if I didn't deliver, I shouldn't expect to be treated as part of the family on her wedding day. I tried reasoning, saying that my intentions weren't to hurt her, but to be realistic about what I could handle. That didn't work. A few weeks ago, she sent me a formal email outlining exactly what she wanted in terms of dimensions, stitch patterns, yarn brands, and even color gradients. She mentioned the blanket had to be ready by the dress rehearsal because she wanted photos of it for the wedding. I panicked. I realized I literally could not produce this without sacrificing sleep and mental health, and the more I tried to negotiate, the more hostile she became. Finally, last week, I sent her a message saying that I would not be making the blanket. I offered a cash gift to help with the wedding costs, a handmade pillow instead, or a gift card for a luxury store she likes, but she said nothing would substitute for the blanket. She then added, rather pointedly, that if I couldn't honor her request, she didn't want me at the wedding at all. I was stunned. I spent the next few days trying to calm things down, even offering to meet halfway by knitting a very small throw-sized blanket. She refused, calling it pathetic and insulting. At this point, I felt backed into a corner. I blocked her on social media and told her via email that I wouldn't attend the wedding if the blanket was still an issue. I explained my reasons calmly, mentioning my time constraints, the stress of my job, and my willingness to give other thoughtful gifts. I also told her that I loved her and wanted to be there for her big day, but I couldn't be coerced into doing something that felt unreasonable. The response from the family has been overwhelming. My mom thinks I'm justified. My dad thinks I'm being dramatic, and several of our relatives have reached out to tell me I'm being cruel and selfish. Emily has stopped speaking to me entirely and has posted cryptic messages online about people who don't support family. I feel like I'm being punished for setting a boundary, but at the same time, part of me wonders if I'm being unreasonable. I've received a lot of advice from friends and coworkers, most of whom say I'm in the right to protect my mental health and not overextend myself for a gift, but the guilt is hard to shake. I also feel like this might permanently damage my relationship with my sister. I love her, but I also know that forcing myself to create something that is essentially a full-time project is not something I can handle right now. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I won't knit a massive blanket? AITA for refusing to let my sister's dog stay in my house, even though she begged me repeatedly? So this all started about 6 months ago. My sister, let's call her Lisa, adopted a dog. I don't want to sound harsh, but Lisa is notoriously irresponsible when it comes to pets. She's had fish that died within a week because she forgot to feed them, a hamster that escaped and she couldn't find for days, and a rabbit that got sick because she didn't know it needed proper bedding. I didn't say anything because I thought she might eventually get better. Fast forward to now, she adopted a medium-sized dog named Max is a hyperactive lab mix, and he's incredibly energetic and requires a lot of attention and training. Lisa, as expected, struggles to manage him. She works long hours and doesn't really have a structured routine, so Max has been getting into a lot of trouble, chewing furniture, knocking over things, barking nonstop, and generally being destructive. Lisa started asking me to watch Max for a few hours at a time. I work from home, so I have my own dog, a calm older golden retriever named Buddy, and I honestly didn't think it was a good idea. Buddy doesn't deal well with overly energetic dogs, and I didn't want my house to turn into chaos. I politely declined the first few times, explaining that Buddy isn't used to hyperactive dogs and that my house isn't set up for a puppy. Lisa got upset, but didn't push it further for a few weeks. Then, one day, she called me almost in tears, saying she had to attend an urgent work trip out of town for a week and that there was no one else to take care of Max. She begged me to let him stay in my house while she was gone, promising she would pay me, buy anything I needed for him, and even clean up any mess he made. I refused. I explained calmly that a week-long stay with an untrained, high-energy dog in a home with another dog that doesn't handle stress well was not something I could manage. I offered some alternatives. She could look into professional pet sitters, boarding facilities, or even ask her friends who have experience with dogs. Lisa started crying on the phone, accusing me of being selfish and not caring about her or Max. I held my ground, feeling guilty, but still certain it was the responsible choice. The next day, Lisa tried to guilt-trip me through text messages. She said things like, "I can't believe you would let me struggle alone when you could help," and "I guess Buddy is more important than my dog." She even tried to frame it as if I was choosing my dog over her child. Her words, not mine. I responded politely, reiterating that it wasn't about favoring one dog over another, but about my ability to safely manage both dogs without anyone getting hurt or stressed. Over the next couple of weeks, things escalated. Lisa started posting passive-aggressive stuff on social media about siblings who don't help each other, tagging me in some posts. She also hinted to our mutual friends that I refused to help her out because I didn't care. I didn't respond publicly because I didn't want drama. I tried to ignore it, but it started affecting my friendships because people began asking me if it was true that I wouldn't help her. One weekend, she showed up at my door unannounced, Max in tow, saying she had no other choice. I was home, working, and I told her firmly that Max could not come in. She got upset, saying I was treating her like a child and that I was ruining her life. I refused to let her in, and eventually, she left angrily, saying she would figure it out herself. I later found out that she left Max at a boarding facility that she could barely afford, and apparently, Max was stressed and barked all night, which I think is just evidence that my concerns were valid. Since then, she's barely spoken to me. She posts things online implying I'm a heartless sibling, and some family members have asked me if I'm sure I wasn't being too harsh. I honestly feel like I did the responsible thing. I wouldn't have been able to properly care for Max, and forcing the issue could have caused serious problems for both dogs. Buddy is old and has anxiety issues, so even a few days with Max would have been difficult for him. However, I also understand that from her perspective, I could have been more flexible or at least try to compromise. Maybe letting Max stay for a day or two, or helping her find a pet sitter, could have been seen as support. I did offer suggestions, but she claims that wasn't enough and that I should have just helped. Now, some relatives are taking her side and saying I overreacted. My friends are split. Some agree I was right to prioritize safety, while others think I could have done more to support her. I'm stuck feeling guilty, but also justified. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister leave her untrained, high-energy dog at my house, even though she begged me for help. AITA for refusing to pay for my niece's expensive birthday party after my sister accused me of being selfish and not family-oriented. I, 34F, have a sister, Rebecca, 31F, and a niece, Lily, 7F. Rebecca and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's very outgoing, dramatic, and tend to expect people to accommodate her plans financially and logistically. I, on the other hand, am more reserved, organized, and financially cautious. Despite our differences, we've always had a close bond, and I genuinely care about my family. A few months ago, Rebecca called me about Lily's upcoming birthday. She explained that she wanted to throw a big, extravagant party for Lily, including a rented venue, performers, custom cakes, expensive decorations, and party favors for all the children. The total cost she was aiming for was over $5,000. She then casually asked me if I could contribute a significant portion, around $1,000, because she said she couldn't afford the entire amount on her own. I was shocked. While I make a decent salary, I also have student loans, a mortgage, and ongoing monthly expenses. I told her that I couldn't give that kind of money, but I was happy to help in other ways. Planning the party, helping DIY decorations, organizing games, or even contributing a smaller, reasonable amount to cover some specific costs. Rebecca's reaction was immediate and dramatic. She accused me of being selfish, not family-oriented, and not valuing Lily's happiness. She said that if I really cared about my niece and family, I would help make the party as special as possible. She added that other relatives were contributing, implying that I was the only one being difficult. I tried to explain that my support could take many forms, not just financial, but she refused to listen. Over the next few weeks, the pressure intensified. Rebecca constantly sent texts and emails detailing aspects of the party I needed to pay for. She framed it as helping the family, Lily, and even herself, and suggested that my refusal made me the villain in her story. She also started posting on social media about how expensive it is to throw a proper birthday party and how everyone should step up for family, clearly hinting at me without naming me. Mutual friends and family started weighing in. Some told me I should contribute the money to avoid tension, while others supported my decision, saying it's my right to set boundaries and that $1,000 is a lot for a gift or contribution. The more I tried to offer practical solutions, like helping with logistics or contributing a smaller amount, the more Rebecca dismissed them as not enough. About a month before the party, Rebecca held a meeting with her friends and family to plan the event. She openly stated that she had asked me for financial help and that my refusal was hurting Lily. I felt humiliated because I had already offered alternative ways to contribute, which she completely ignored. She framed my stance as cold and selfish, and some attendees expressed disappointment, which only made me more frustrated and stressed. I then offered a final compromise. I would contribute $200 toward a specific aspect of the party, help coordinate decorations and games, and manage logistics for guests and activities. I made it clear that I could not give any more than that, and that I would not cover a significant portion of the overall cost. Rebecca refused again and said that my offer was pathetic and not real support. She said I was choosing money over family and that I was damaging my relationship with Lily. Since then, our relationship has become strained. Rebecca barely talks to me except to criticize me for not being supportive enough. Lily still loves me, but I feel sad that this situation has cast a shadow over my relationship with both of them. Other relatives have taken sides. Some say I'm right to set boundaries. Others say I should have just given in to avoid drama. I've been feeling frustrated, guilty, and anxious because I want to support my family, but I also can't compromise my financial security for something I can't realistically afford. I feel like I'm being punished for having boundaries. I want to celebrate Lily's birthday and be involved, but I also don't want to be guilt-tripped or manipulated into paying for an extravagant event I can't afford. I've offered multiple ways to help, but Rebecca refuses anything that doesn't involve a large sum of money. Reddit: AITA for refusing to pay for my niece's expensive birthday party after my sister accused me of being selfish and not family-oriented. I want to support my niece and help make her birthday special, but I also need to respect my own financial limits and boundaries. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 27F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 25F. We grew up in the same house, went to the same schools, and for most of our lives we were close. But as we got older, our personalities started to clash more. I'm organized, careful, and value honesty and consistency. Emily is more spontaneous, impulsive, and has a knack for exaggerating stories, which sometimes made me feel like I couldn't trust her judgment. That being said, I've always tried to support her, even when I disagreed with her choices. Emily started dating her now fiancé, Mark, 28M, about 2 years ago. From the beginning, I had reservations about him. He was charming and funny on the surface, but I noticed a few red flags early on. He would make passive-aggressive jokes at Emily's expense, subtly undermine her decisions, and had this habit of forgetting things he promised her. At first, I thought maybe I was overreacting because I didn't know him well, but over time, his behavior toward her became more concerning. Fast forward to last year, Emily announced her engagement. I was happy for her, of course, but my concerns about Mark grew. What finally tipped me over the edge were several incidents at her bridal shower. Mark showed up uninvited initially, which Emily had clearly said she didn't want. And when he was allowed to stay, he started making comments about how Emily should be nicer to the bridal party and criticize some of her choices, including minor things like the cake flavor and decorations. When I tried to privately point out that his behavior was disrespectful, Emily brushed it off and told me I was overreacting. Things came to a head a few weeks ago when Emily asked me to help with seating arrangements for the wedding. While we were planning, Mark started making derogatory comments about some guests, calling them boring or annoying, and even suggested leaving some people off the invitation list because he didn't like them. I told Emily that I was uncomfortable and that I didn't want to participate in planning a wedding where her fiancé was actively being cruel and manipulative. Emily got very defensive, saying I was trying to control her wedding and that I didn't trust her judgment. I tried explaining that it wasn't about controlling anything. It was about how Mark treated people and, by extension, Emily, but she insisted I was being dramatic. Last weekend, Emily had a small pre-wedding dinner at her parents' house, and Mark made a comment in front of everyone that Emily's friends were overly sensitive and easily offended, including me. I quietly excused myself and went home because I didn't feel comfortable staying in that environment. Emily later texted me, saying that I was being disrespectful and that she couldn't believe I would skip these events just because of Mark. My parents are split on this. My dad says he understands why I'm uncomfortable, but my mom believes I should put my feelings aside for Emily's special day. I decided to be honest with Emily and told her that I will not be attending her wedding unless Mark changes his behavior and shows that he respects her and the people around her. I also explained that I can't support a marriage where I see her being treated poorly, and I need to protect my own mental health. Emily was furious and accused me of trying to sabotage her wedding. She has been calling me selfish, dramatic, and even said that our relationship might be over if I don't come. My friends are divided as well. Some say I'm justified because Mark's behavior is toxic and I have the right to set boundaries. Others argue that I should put my discomfort aside for Emily's big day because family obligations sometimes require us to tolerate difficult people. I feel like I'm being reasonable and that my stance comes from concern for Emily, not trying to hurt her. At the same time, I never imagined it would come to this, where attending my sister's wedding feels like I'd be endorsing her fiancé's behavior. I know family relationships are complicated, but I also know that setting boundaries is important. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he refused to help me when I needed it most. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I, 27F, have a younger brother, Kyle, 24M, and our relationship has always been a little rocky. Growing up, our parents were fairly hands-off, which meant that a lot of responsibilities and life lessons fell on us to figure out. I always looked out for him, helped him with school, jobs, and basically acted like a second parent sometimes. Kyle, on the other hand, never really reciprocated much. He was a bit lazy, very self-centered, and while he's smart, he rarely used his intelligence to help anyone but himself. Fast forward to a few years ago, I went through a pretty rough patch. I lost my job unexpectedly, my car broke down, and to top it off, I got into a minor car accident that left me with medical bills I couldn't really afford. I reached out to Kyle for help, just asking if he could loan me a few $100s so I could cover rent and groceries until I got back on my feet. I know it's not a huge sum in the grand scheme of things, but for me at the time, it was critical. Kyle told me he couldn't help, not because he didn't have money, but because he didn't want to get involved in my mess. I asked if he could at least give me a little advice or help me figure out a plan, and he basically shrugged and said, "You're an adult. Figure it out." I was stunned. I'd spent years helping him whenever he needed something, and suddenly when I needed him, he vanished. Around the same time, he got engaged to his girlfriend, Megan. Fast forward 2 years, and they're planning their wedding. Naturally, like many families, they asked family members to contribute financially. My parents said they were happy to cover some things, but Kyle made it very clear that he wanted me to help cover a portion of the wedding costs because I have a steady job and he knows I can afford it. At first, I tried to reason with him. I said that while I would love to celebrate his big day, I could not, in good conscience, pay for a wedding when he refused to help me during my crisis. He argued that family helps family and that I should do this for him the same way I expect him to do it for me in the future. I tried explaining that asking for money isn't the same as refusing help when someone is in a crisis. He got very defensive, started bringing up the fact that I had helped him with college applications and job applications, and claimed that this somehow balanced the scales. Honestly, that felt ridiculous to me. Helping someone fill out paperwork when they were thriving and helping themselves is not remotely comparable to helping someone survive a financially crippling situation. So, I told him flat out, I will attend your wedding and help in ways that don't involve giving you thousands of dollars. I will help with minor things like sending invitations or helping you pick out decorations, but I am not financially contributing. This led to a huge blow-up. He called me selfish, ungrateful, and said I was ruining his special day. Megan even got involved and told me that Kyle's family should support him, and it's disappointing you won't. At that point, I realized there was no reasoning with him. The family split on the issue. My parents said that I wasn't obligated, but they were frustrated because they felt I was being cold toward Kyle. Some of my extended family agreed with Kyle and Megan, claiming that it's tradition to help siblings, while others sided with me, pointing out that Kyle had refused to help me during a serious crisis. To complicate things further, my parents started hinting that if I didn't contribute financially, there might be tension at the wedding. They kept saying things like, "It won't be the same if you don't help," or "Kyle might feel hurt," which felt like emotional manipulation. I decided to stand my ground. I even offered to help with planning, decorate, or even host a pre-wedding brunch, anything that didn't involve writing a check for several $1,000s. Kyle rejected every single offer, saying, "That's not what I'm asking for. You know what you owe me." I asked him repeatedly what I owed him, and he basically said that by helping him in the past with minor stuff, I should now pay him back in the form of a financial contribution. The situation escalated when Kyle started sending group texts to relatives, basically guilt-tripping them about me not contributing. Some of our relatives were passive-aggressive about it, while others were supportive of my decision. I honestly felt blindsided and hurt because I never imagined this would come to a point where family was taking sides over money. I also have to admit that part of me is hurt personally. I tried to reach out to Kyle multiple times to reconcile or explain my side calmly, but he refused. He said I was being manipulative by bringing up past events and that I should just do what family does and pay up. I realized that no matter what I said, he wasn't going to understand my perspective. Now, a few weeks before the wedding, he's outright told me that if I don't pay, I'm not welcome to certain pre-wedding events and that I'm putting my selfishness above family. I'm attending the wedding itself, but I'm honestly upset and resentful. I've always been the one who goes out of my way to help family, and now I feel like I'm being punished for refusing to financially bail out someone who refused to help me when I really needed it. I also feel guilty because everyone is saying things like, it's just a wedding, you should support your brother, but I honestly think that ignoring how he treated me in the past would send the wrong message. I don't want to reward someone for being selfish and unhelpful, even if it's for the sake of family harmony. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he refused to help me when I needed it most. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she got divorced. Even though my parents think I'm being cruel, I, 28F, have always had a fairly independent life. I've lived in the same city my whole adult life, work as a graphic designer, and own a small apartment. My sister, Lily, 32F, on the other hand, has been less stable. She got married right after college and moved across the country with her husband. Over the years, I've watched her life unravel in slow motion. She's been through a series of bad jobs, has a tendency to overspend, and seems to rely heavily on others to bail her out when things go wrong. A few weeks ago, I got a call from Lily. She had gotten divorced and wanted to move back to the city. She said she was thinking about staying with me temporarily until she got back on her feet. At first, I hesitated. I remembered the last time she temporarily stayed with me for a week while she was visiting, which ended up being 3 months of her using my apartment as a base while she tried, and failed, to find a job. She also left dishes piled up for days, borrowed money, and constantly invited her friends over without asking. Despite my reservations, I tried to be supportive. I told her she was welcome to stay for a week or two while she looked for an apartment, but I made it very clear that she needed to have a plan, a timeline, and contribute to the household. I also asked her to respect my space and boundaries. She agreed. The first week went relatively smoothly. She was polite, helped a little around the apartment, and actively looked for jobs and apartments. But things started to change by the second week. She began staying up late, watching TV loudly, left her laundry on my living room floor, and started borrowing small amounts of money for emergencies. I reminded her of our agreement, and she promised to do better. By the third week, it became unbearable. She hadn't applied to any apartments seriously, and she told me that she had no income coming in yet because it's hard to find a job in this economy. I reminded her that she had lived in this city before and knew it was competitive. I also reminded her that I had my own job, my own stress, and my own life, and I couldn't support her indefinitely. She got upset and accused me of being unsympathetic. She said I was being selfish and that families should support each other during hard times. I argued that temporary support is one thing, but I couldn't allow her to use me as a safety net indefinitely, especially when she hadn't made a real effort to take care of herself. The situation escalated when she started bringing friends over without asking, borrowing money she didn't pay back, and leaving my apartment in a mess. I told her she had to leave, but she refused. She said I didn't understand how hard it was to start over after a divorce, and that I was being cold. I eventually called my parents to mediate, hoping they would back me up or at least help her find a solution. Instead, they sided with her. They told me I was being cruel and that I should let her stay until she could get back on her feet. They said I didn't understand what it was like to go through a divorce, and that family should come first. I tried explaining that my support had limits, and that it was unreasonable to expect me to host her indefinitely without a plan. They argued that I was prioritizing my comfort over her well-being. At this point, I felt cornered and frustrated. I ended up giving her a firm deadline to move out, which she reluctantly agreed to, but my parents have been texting me nonstop saying I'm a bad sister. I understand that family support is important, but I also feel like I have a right to set boundaries. I'm worried that my refusal to let her stay longer will cause a permanent rift between us. My sister has been passive-aggressive since then, hinting that I abandoned her when she needed help, and my parents keep sending me articles and messages about how I'm not being compassionate. I have offered to help her search for apartments, write resumes, and even lend small amounts of money with a repayment plan, but they say that's not enough. I feel like I'm being punished for not allowing her to live in my apartment indefinitely. I'm trying to balance compassion with practicality, but my family keeps making me feel guilty for not going above and beyond. I'm exhausted and stressed, and I don't know if I'm overreacting. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after her divorce. Even though my parents think I'm being cruel, AITA for refusing to cover my cousin's wedding expenses after she said I was not a real family member. I, 34F, come from a fairly close-knit family, though we've always had our differences. My cousin, Vanessa, 32F, is the type of person who plans everything to the extreme and expects others to bend to her desires. I've always helped when I could, but she has a history of expecting financial and emotional contributions far beyond what most people would offer. A few months ago, Vanessa got engaged. She immediately started talking about her dream wedding: lavish venue, custom designer dress, high-end catering, and over-the-top decorations. During a conversation, she casually mentioned how expensive everything was and then asked if I could contribute to her wedding costs, implying that it would be expected of close family members. I was stunned. While I make a decent salary, I also have significant monthly expenses including rent, student loans, and other bills. I explained that I could not cover the wedding, but I offered to help in other ways, assisting with planning, managing invitations, helping organize DIY decorations, or even helping research cost-effective vendors. Vanessa's reaction was immediate and dramatic. She accused me of being selfish, cold, and not a real family member. She claimed that helping her financially was a way to show I cared, and that if I truly valued family, I'd support her wedding in a significant way. I tried to explain that support can take many forms, not just money, but she refused to accept this reasoning. In the following weeks, Vanessa repeatedly brought up the money issue. She would post on social media vague messages about family who won't step up and friends and relatives who make things hard when support is needed, clearly hinting at me. She sent me long texts detailing every expense and explaining why I should help her financially. Each time I offered alternative support, she dismissed it as insufficient. The situation escalated when Vanessa involved other relatives. She told them that I was refusing to help her wedding financially, framing it as me being cold-hearted and unsupportive. Some relatives pressured me to contribute, suggesting it was a moral obligation to pay for a cousin's wedding, while others supported me, saying that no one is required to cover someone else's lavish celebration. I felt caught in the middle and increasingly frustrated. A month before the wedding, Vanessa sent me a message claiming that my refusal meant she might not be able to afford certain parts of her wedding. She said that my lack of financial support hurt her deeply and that she would remember it forever. She also said that I was choosing my own comfort and finances over family loyalty. I reiterated my offer to help with planning, organizing, and DIY solutions, but she insisted that only a monetary contribution would count as real support. Things got worse when I attended a family meeting for wedding planning. Vanessa openly said in front of everyone that I was refusing to contribute financially, which embarrassed me and made me feel humiliated. I tried to redirect the conversation to other ways I could help, but she refused to let the discussion move forward unless I agreed to pay. I then offered a final compromise. I could help with logistics, decorations, research, and contribute a small, reasonable amount that would not jeopardize my own finances. Vanessa rejected this outright, calling it pathetic and saying that it showed I didn't care about her happiness or the wedding. She accused me of being selfish and implied that this would damage my relationship with her permanently. Since then, our relationship has become tense. Vanessa barely speaks to me except to complain about wedding stress, and she continues posting vague comments about family members who don't support you when it matters. Other relatives have taken sides. Some say I was right to set boundaries, while others say I should have given in to avoid conflict. I feel frustrated, guilty, and stressed because I genuinely want to support my cousin, but I also can't compromise my financial security for something I cannot afford. Reddit. AITA for refusing to cover my cousin's wedding expenses after she said I was not a real family member. I've offered to help in many ways that don't involve giving money, but she refuses anything that isn't a direct financial contribution. I want to support her, but I also need to respect my own boundaries and financial reality. AITA for refusing to give my sister my inheritance because she needs it more. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, especially my sister, 32F. We grew up in a pretty average household, nothing extreme, but my parents always emphasized that we should work hard for what we wanted and not rely on anyone else. My sister, however, has always been more entitled and honestly a bit manipulative. Our parents passed away within a year of each other, which was devastating. They left behind a modest house, a savings account, and some investments. I was the one who handled most of the funeral arrangements and sorting out the legal stuff because I was more organized and available than my sister. The estate was eventually divided equally between us. Here's where it gets messy. I have a stable job and live comfortably in a small apartment. I don't struggle financially. My sister, on the other hand, has bounced around jobs, often leaving abruptly or getting fired, and she's had a hard time managing money. She's been living paycheck to paycheck for years. When we were sorting through the inheritance, she started dropping hints that she really needed my share more than I did, and that I should just let her have it. At first, I thought she was joking or trying to guilt me, but she kept pushing. She sent messages like, "I can't afford my rent this month. You could really help me out." Or, "I know you're doing fine. You don't really need this money anyway." She even called me crying one night, saying I was being selfish if I didn't give her the money. I felt terrible, but I didn't give in. I decided to meet with her in person to talk about it. I explained that while I understood she was struggling, the inheritance was ours equally, and I had worked hard for my own finances. I told her that giving her my half would set a precedent I wasn't comfortable with. She got extremely angry and accused me of being greedy, heartless, and ungrateful, especially since she was struggling more than I was. She even brought up our parents' memory, saying they would have wanted me to help my sister in need instead of hoarding the money. Things escalated from there. She started posting on social media, sharing vague posts about family betrayal and money, implying that I was selfish and unkind. Some of our extended family and friends reached out to me privately, saying they thought I should just give her the money to avoid family drama. I refused. Over the past 6 months, our relationship has been almost non-existent. She refuses to speak to me directly and only communicates through angry texts or posts online. She even tried to involve our cousins and friends to pressure me into giving her the money. I feel like I'm being punished for not caving to manipulation. A few weeks ago, she did something that really pushed me over the edge. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, late at night, and demanded I hand over a portion of my inheritance. I didn't open the door and told her I wouldn't be discussing money in person because it was inappropriate. She left a note on my door saying that I was ruining the family and that our parents would be ashamed. I started questioning myself after that, but then I realized giving her my inheritance wouldn't solve her long-term issues, and it would only encourage this behavior. I also thought about the fact that our parents left the money equally for a reason, not to give her a handout. Now, other family members are taking sides. Some say I should give her part of the inheritance to maintain peace, while others think she's manipulating me. I feel conflicted because I don't want to be seen as cruel, but at the same time, I don't want to let someone guilt me out of money that is legally and rightfully mine. I also considered setting up some sort of financial help that doesn't involve giving her the inheritance directly, like helping her make a budget or find resources. But every time I suggest that, she accuses me of playing games and insists I just give her the money. I've been debating cutting ties completely, but I'm not sure if I'm overreacting. My friends are supportive of me, but I can't help feeling that I might be seen as the villain by the larger family. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister my inheritance, even though she says she needs it more. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.